Hi guys, welcome back to the Curly Reader. Today I want to share with you the 20 books that I would like to read in 2020. So I shared with you a couple of days ago my 2020 reading goals. And amongst those were a few series that I would like to complete, as well as types of books I would like to read. This is more just 20 books that have been either on my physical TBR or my Goodreads TBR for quite a while that I would like to get to in 2020, and I'm trying to make them a priority for this year. So some of them, like I said, I own, some of them I don't. Some of them are starting new series. I did a video a month or so ago about series that I would like to start or I would like to read that I haven't started yet. And so I have a couple of those in here that I would like to get to in 2020. And so, yeah, let's dig in and I will share with you these 20 books that I would like to read this upcoming year. So I figured I would go in order of age range. So I'm going to start with my middle grade books and then I'll share with you. I only have maybe one or two YA books and then the rest are adult books. But the first book that I have on my list is Artemis Fowl. This is by Eowyn Colfer, I think. Anyway, this is one of the series that I had mentioned in the video that I did about series I would like to read that I haven't started yet. And from what I know, this is about a criminal mastermind that's a kid and he steals a fairy maybe. And that was a bad idea. And it's kind of the fallout of that. I think there are 8 books in this series total, and I would like to at least get started on that this year. My other middle grade book that I have on this list is The Girl Who Drank the Moon. So this has been on a number of my TBRs and it is the book that forever eludes me. I can never get around to finally reading it. I did start it this past year during middle grade March. I started it on audiobook and it just didn't mesh with me on audiobook. I might have been trying to listen to it too fast. And anyway, I need to go back and start it from the beginning again and get it done. This may be one that I try to read during middle grade March this year. But whether or not I read it during March or not, I would like to get this done this year because it's one that I really, really, really want to read. So that's my other middle grade. Oh, and this is about a girl who, it's like a village, and the people in the village every year sacrifice a baby to this witch in the woods, and they do it so that she will protect them. And so they sacrifice this baby, well, they leave it in the woods. They give it to the witch. And she every year comes and takes the baby, not because she wants it in return for their protection of the village, but because they leave it in the woods and she doesn't know why they're leaving it there, and she just takes it to a family that will take care of it. And so on her trip one year, instead of feeding the baby Starlight to nourish it as she's traveling to this other home for the baby, she gives it Moonlight on accident and it ends up filling the child with magic. And so it's just kind of that story, I think. That's part of it anyway. So I've heard amazing things about it though, and it is a Newbery Medal winner. So anyway, that is my other middle grade book. I only had 2. So the first young adult book that is on this list is A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. And this is another one of the series that I wanted to start that I haven't started yet. And it's just one that has been very, very popular ever since I started watching BookTube, and I just never got around to reading it. And so it's just one that I really think that I would enjoy if I took the time to read it. But it's one that I have had a hard time finding an audiobook for. I did finally find an audiobook for it, and I did not like it at all. And so a lot of times if I can't find it on audio, it takes me a longer time to pick it up because I read less physical books. And so they tend to pile up a lot faster than audiobooks do for me. So anyway, regardless, this is one that I would like to get to. It's a fantasy that is about this world where there are 4 different Londons: red, black, white, and gray, I think. And so one of them there's no magic, one of them there is magic, one of them the magic is dying maybe, and then one of them is completely desolate, I think. And then there's a character who can travel between the 4 different Londons. And that's all I really know. So anyway, I would like to get that one read. Another young adult book that I would like to read this year is Wrath in the Dawn by Renee Ahdieh. And this is a duology that has been around for a while now. I've heard really, really great things about it. I just have never had the chance once again to pick it up. So this is another YA fantasy that is about this land in which the king, who is, I think is 18 years old, takes a new bride every day, and in the morning he kills her. And then the next day he takes a new bride and then kills her the next morning. And so our main character, I think, is selected to be a bride, and she decides that she is going to not go for it, or maybe she's going to try to kill the king or something along those lines. Anyway, I've heard really, really great things about this duology, and it's one that I think would be easy to knock out this year. It's just a matter of finally getting to it. So I do want to read that one. The other YA book that I would like to read this year is Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. This is one that I'm like kind of embarrassed that I haven't read yet because it is huge on BookTube and I just haven't ever gotten around to it. Everybody that I have heard of that has read it has absolutely raved about it. It has an amazing audiobook, so there's no reason why I should not have read this yet. But I do want to get to this one. And then I know the second book in this series came out this past month, maybe, but it just recently was released. And so I could potentially catch up with that completely this year. Children of Blood and Bone it's like an African-based fantasy, and I think it's about like this group of people who have magic, and magic has been suppressed, and so they're almost like slaves and they're not allowed to use magic. And then one of the girls decides that they're going to start using magic again and start fighting back, I think. I don't know. That's what I understand it to kind of be about. But yeah, so I do want to try to get this one and possibly the next one both read this year. So those are the 3 YA books that I would like to read this year. And then the rest of these are adult novels. So a couple of the books that I decided to put on this list are classics. It is an annual goal of mine to read 5 classics this year. So I put 2 of them on this list specifically because I figured that kind of is a double incentive to get these specific ones knocked out. And one of the ones that I put on this list is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I've never read Pride and Prejudice. And I feel like in order to call myself a book lover, I kind of have to read Pride and Prejudice. So I got this amazing Penguin Classics cloth-bound edition at a thrift store, and I love it. But I really, really, really want to read this year. And yeah, so hopefully this will get done. And then the other classic that I put on my list is also on my winter TBR, and that is To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. I've never read this, and that's a problem because I know I would love this book. I just have never gotten around to reading it. So this is going on my list as well. And I believe this deals with race relations. But other than that, I have no idea really what it's about. So yeah. All right, so those are the classics that I have on my list. All right, so this next group of books that I'm going to share with you are the historical fiction that I have on my list for this year. The first of which is The Secret Life of Bees by Sue Monk Kidd. This is another one that I've heard a lot about, but I've never read it, and it's fairly short, so I think I should be able to knock it out pretty quickly. But this is a historical fiction that takes place in 1964 in South Carolina, so I'm sure that has to do with race as well. But I'm not real sure what it's about other than that. But I love historical fiction, and this is one that I've been meaning to read and recently was able to pick up at a library book sale. So I'm going to try to get to that one this year. I also have on my historical fiction list The Forgotten Garden. Ooh, sorry, that's like major glare. The Forgotten Garden by Kate Morton. So I've never read Kate Morton, and I have a couple of them, and I would like to at least read one of them because I think I would really like them. So this one is about this girl who was abandoned on a ship headed for Australia in 1913. And so she arrives with only her suitcase that has clothes and a single book, which is a volume of fairy tales. She's taken him by the dock master and his wife and raised as their own. And then on her 21st birthday, they tell her the truth of where she came from. And so she kind of goes on this quest of self-discovery. And it says it leads her to the Blackhurst Manor on the Cornish coast and the secrets of the doomed Mount Ratchet family. And then it's not until her daughter Cassandra takes up the search after Nell's death that the pieces of the puzzle are finally assembled. So it sounds like it's a dual timeline of historical fiction, but I've heard really, really great things about this one. And yeah, I would really like to get to some Kate Morton. And this is one that I already own that is on my shelves. So I put that one on my list. And then I also have Where the Crawdads Sing on my list of historical fiction I would like to read this year. This is another one that's super hyped that I just haven't gotten around to reading yet. It is about a marsh girl in the Carolinas, I think, in the 1960s that is accused of murdering someone maybe, and that's really all I know about it. This one is one that is, like I said, super, super hyped up and buzzed about. Everybody that reads it loves it, and so I would just like to finally get to it. So the last historical fiction that is on my list is A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Towles. Anyway, this is one that I started reading this past year and I never finished it, and I would like to start it over from the beginning and complete it because the premise of this just sounds absolutely fascinating to me. It is about a guy in Moscow that is accused of war crimes, I think, and he is sentenced to live in this hotel. And in this hotel, his like window opens up onto the major square in town. And he kind of just observes society over the decades of his life as he's placed on house arrest and just kind of how things are changing and all of that. And it just sounds really, really interesting to me. So I would really, really like to get this one read as well. All right, and then I have another one that was on my series list that I put on my list for this year that is kind of historical fiction and kind of fantasy, and that is Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. And I just really, really want to read this. My sister is obsessed with the show, and I started watching like the first episode of the show and decided I would really like to read the book because it just sounded really, really good, and I want to read the book before I watch the show. So this is the year I'm going to commit to at least reading Outlander. And from there, I will decide if I would like to continue with the series or if I just want to drop it and just watch the show. So Outlander is going to get done, and this is about a woman post-World War II in Scotland, maybe? That may be wrong. But anyway, she kind of gets trapped in this portal and is transferred, time travel, back to like medieval almost times where there's, knights and sword fighting and all that fun stuff. So it just sounds really, really fun and interesting, and I've heard good things about it. And so, yeah, that's another one I would really like to get to this year. A fantasy series that I have that I would like to start this year is The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch, I think. Yeah, Scott Lynch. So this is one that I've heard compared to Six of Crows. And then after I heard that comparison and I put it on my TBR, I also have been watching Murphy Napier's channel, and she has just raved about this series. And then Reagan at Peruse Project has also said that she read the series and loved it. And so now I just really, really need to read it because I have FOMO and it just sounds really, really good and I really want to start it. So this is one I'm sure I will not have an issue picking up because I'm very excited about it. But this is about a group of orphans that are trained to be con artists, I think. And they go around doing cons, and I don't know. That's what I know about it. So I would like to get to that one. And then another hyped book that I have on my list is The Martian by Andy Weir. Ooh, sorry about that glare. And this is one, once again, that I've heard so many people love it, and I've never read it, and I really, really want to, and I can't find an audiobook. I think it's an Audible exclusive, and I don't pay for Audible, so I don't get the audiobook. But I just have a feeling that I'm going to love this book. I really like the sci-fi that I do read. I don't read a whole lot of it, but the stuff that I do read, I enjoy. So this one's on my list as one that I would love to get to. Another hyped book that I have on my list is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, and this, once again, is one that I've heard raved about and I've never actually read, and I know Erin Morgenstern just came out with a new book that everybody's loving as well. So yeah, and I'm actually not real sure what this one is about, but I know it has to do with a circus. This is The Circus Arrives Without Warning, and it's behind the scenes. There's a competition between two young magicians. So this is one that has been on my TBR for a really, really long time. Way before I started watching BookTube, this had been on my TBR, and so this is the year that one's finally going to get done. One that I have on this list that is by an author that I read this year and fell in love with is My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry by Fredrik Backman. I read Beartown and Us Against You this year, and last year, I believe, I read A Man Called Ove, and I enjoyed A Man Called Ove. It wasn't my favorite book, but Beartown and Us Against You just made me absolutely fall in love with Fredrik Backman, and this has been on my physical TBR on my bookshelf, and I haven't read it yet, and so this is my next Fredrik Backman I'd like to get to, and I really want to continue reading all of his backlist books because I just love his writing style. So this one is going on my TBR for the year. One that is going on my TBR that is kind of I've never ever seen mentioned on BookTube, but has been on my physical TBR for a number of years, and that's because my parents gave it to me a long time ago, is This Present Darkness. It doesn't have the dust jacket on it, but they gave me this bind up. This has two books in it, This Present Darkness, and then the sequel, Piercing the Darkness. I would like to at least read the first one because I have moved this to so many different houses and never even thought to pick it up. And yeah, so it's one that I either need to read or I need to donate it, because if I'm not going to read it, I'm not going to read it. But my understanding of this one is that it has to do with spiritual warfare, so like angels versus demons sort of thing. And this town that is trying to kind of be overrun by that. And yeah, my parents loved it and they highly, highly recommended it to me years and years ago. And so I would like to at least get the first one of that read this year. Another one that I have on my list is And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. Agatha Christie is an author that I've never read that I would really like to at least read a couple of books by her at some point in my life, and what better time than now. And this might be considered a classic. It's a classic mystery, so I'll have to look into like the publication date and see exactly if this is considered a classic or not. But it is just kind of my understanding is it's like a closed door mystery. Everybody's at one location, people start dying, it's a whodunit, and that kind of sounds like something I might like to start dabbling in, is that type of mystery books. And so I wanted to put this one on my list to kind of challenge me to get out of my like contemporary and historical fiction comfort zone. So I put that one on this list. So the one nonfiction book that I put on this list is The Library Book by Suzanne Orlean. And this is a book that is about a fire that destroyed I think it was the LA Public Library. And it's just kind of a story about, not a story, like a nonfiction expose maybe, about libraries and their purpose and their importance and what the LA Library meant and what was destroyed and why that was important and all that, I think. But I've just heard so many people that love this book and I really, really want to read it. And so this went on my list. And then the last book that I put on my 2020 TBR, and I don't know if this is YA or adult, whatever, is The Promised Neverland. And I'm not even going to try to say the author's name because I probably will not be able to pronounce it. But this is a manga. And this was in my list, on one of my growing TBR lists. And I had mentioned that Liv from Liv's Library had made this video about manga for beginners and where to begin, and this was one of the ones on her list. And this is on my list specifically because I would like to at least try manga this year. I love graphic novels. I read a ton of graphic novels and I've never read manga. So it seems like it's the natural kind of next step for me is to start dabbling in manga. And this is one that just sounded really interesting. I think it has to do with time travel and it has fantastical elements. Other than that, I'm really not 100% sure about the plot of it, but I'd like to at least give it a shot. So those are the 20 books that I would like to read in 2020. Do you do an annual TBR? I've never done an annual TBR. This is kind of going to be a trial thing for me. I may never ever do this again. We shall see. But I figured that this is a good way to try to get some of these books that I have really, really wanted to check out for a long time completed. And there's no reason why I shouldn't be able to do this. So we'll see how it works. I know a lot of people make annual TBRs and then at the end of the year decide that it's not for them and never do it again. So we'll see how this ends up. But if you're someone who makes an annual TBR, what is the one book that you really, really want to read in the year 2020? I'd love to hear. And if you are not someone who makes annual TBRs, tell me anyway. What's a book that you'd love to read in 2020? Either way, I'd love to hear from you. If you have read any of these books, I'd love to hear your comments down below. And also, if you would be interested in doing a buddy read for any of these, let me know. I'd like to spread them out throughout the year, but other than that, having buddy reads on schedule is something that really keeps me motivated to get books done in a prompt manner. So if you would be interested in that, let me know down below. I do my buddy reads on Voxer, so that is one thing that I do ask, is that if you are wanting to do a buddy read, that you have an account on Voxer. It is a free app, so that may be something that you might be interested in. Let me know. And other than that, I think that's all I got for today. So I hope that you enjoyed this, and I hope that you stick around and subscribe. And until next time, see ya!